Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Simple Watch Reviews, where I review simple watches in a straightforward way. Today, a homage to a classic diver. This is my review of the Seestern 62 Mass. The Seiko 62 Mass is, in my opinion, one of the classic diver designs. I think it's up there with the 50 Fathoms, the Submariner, the Doxa Sub 300. I think it's an absolutely classic design. Seiko obviously think it's an absolutely classic design as well, because they keep on bringing it back in various versions at various different price points. I owned one of those versions a while ago, the watch they call the 1965 Divers Recreation, the SPB 143, which was a really nice watch, but it wore a bit big for me. It's 40.5mm in diameter, and that was just a bit big for my 6¼ inch wrist. The Seestern is a fair bit smaller than that, and I have to say it wears very nicely indeed. The dimensions seem to differ depending on which site you're looking at. I got it from AliExpress. For reference, I paid about £130 for it, which I think is kind of about 150, 160 US dollars. Looking around, I've seen it at a wide variety of different prices though. I think there are different versions of it available, so do check with the seller which version you're actually getting, and do shop around for the cheapest price you can get. So anyway, the seller on AliExpress was listing it as a 37mm diameter with a 47mm lug to lug. Seestern on their site list it as 38mm in diameter with just over 46mm lug to lug. My calipers kind of agree with that, so about 38mm in diameter, about 46.4mm on the lug to lug. It is thick though, so about 13.7mm thick, although obviously some of that is the domed sapphire crystal. The case and bracelet, as you'd expect, a 316L stainless steel. It's got a screw down crown which gives it 200 meters of water resistance, and that lovely box domed sapphire crystal. And inside the case, as you probably expect, is the Seiko NH35 Automatic movement beating away nicely. The bezel is ceramic and looks absolutely fantastic. I'm not always a huge fan of ceramic bezels. Sometimes I prefer the vintage look of aluminium, but this one looks wonderful and it really catches the light beautifully. That bezel surrounds the dial, which is a gorgeous sunburst grey and has these big, deep indices on it. Those indices are framed with stainless steel, as is the date window, and everything on this watch just catches the light in a really pleasing way. It's very much got a tool watch aesthetic to it, but equally it has a real look of refinement. The printing on the dial's kept to a minimum and looks great, I think. Just Seestern across the top, which is a fantastic name. I do think some of the Chinese brands suffer from names that maybe aren't quite perfect to the Western ear. I think Seestern though is a great name. So Seestern at the top below the 12, and then automatic 200 meters above the 6. Nice and simple. The bezel, the hands, the indices, and even the date wheel are very well lumed with what Seestern refer to as a Japan lume. It's got a lovely bright green glow to it, which seems to last very well. The bezel is solid with very little play. It's a 120 click bezel, and those clicks are very pleasing to the ear. Mine doesn't line up exactly, but it's certainly no worse than a number of Seikos I've owned. The bracelet is probably my least favourite part of the watch. It's absolutely fine in terms of its construction. It's a 3-link oyster style bracelet, 20mm at the lugs, and those lugs are drilled to make strap changes easier. It tapers down to 18mm, and the clasp is a mil clasp with 6 levels of micro adjustment. My problem with the bracelet is I would have liked to have seen a stronger taper on it. I'd like it to go down to 16. I think that suits a vintage style watch better. And with the bracelet on, the watch does feel quite heavy on the wrist. I think I'm going to be moving mine onto a rubber strap instead. But I think that's really my only criticism of the watch. It really does look gorgeous. That sapphire crystal has a bit of anti-reflective underneath, so you can really see the dial well. And the dome of the sapphire is really nicely done. You get a nice level of distortion at the edges of the dial at the right angles. The case is brushed on both the top and the sides, but with a lovely polished chamfer along the edge. And those lugs turn down nicely, so even though the watch is thick and that case back does protrude quite a bit, when you get it on wrist, it wears very comfortably indeed. Here it is on my 6¼ inch wrist, and you can see it wears fantastically. The female end links on the bracelet definitely help with that. I think some of the earlier versions of the watch had male end links, so do check that with the seller you're buying from if that's something that's important to you. So that's my review of the Seestern 62 Mass. I'm definitely very pleased with it for the £130 that I paid, but as I said, I have seen it cheaper than that subsequently, so do shop around. The bracelet is the one thing I don't love about the watch, but it's a watch that I suspect will be an absolute strap monster. I'll definitely be trying it on rubber, on maybe a NATO as well, although perhaps the thickness of the case will mean that a NATO isn't the best choice for it. Let me know what you think in the comments, give the video a like if you enjoyed it, and please do consider subscribing for more simple watch reviews. I'm uploading 3 times a week on a Monday, Wednesday and Friday, so there's plenty more reviews to come.